about you? What was your best scene or favorite scene?
I think so. I've mentioned him a few times. I quite like Takashi Kitano.
Oh yeah.
Um, he's an aging badass.
Yeah.
In fact, he's not an aging badass. He's an old badass now, really. But he's given really nothing to do in the film. He just sits in his chair, and he's just there to attract the Asian audience, and he knows he's just there to attract the Asian audience. So he's not really trying.
No.
He looks like he could lapse into a coma at any moment, which is kind of how I felt while I was watching it. But then there's this one. Actually, there's two scenes, but there's one where I think it's the CEO of the robotic corporation tries to have him killed, and these guys try and assassinate him, and they fail basically. And he just gets up and he pulls out his gun and he says, he's got that thing where like one eye is smaller than the other, and he's got really no expression on his face, and he says, obviously in Japanese, he says, "Don't send a rabbit
to kill a fox." Yes.
And then bang. And then I was like, yep, that's Takashi Kitano. That's the Takashi Kitano I know, and that's why he's been hired, because he does that better than anybody.
True.
And then I'm being a little self-indulgent here, but then later on, there's the character Cutter, I think that's his name, who is Cutter. Again this Cutter, yeah. And he pulls a gun on Takashi Kitano, and he says, "You don't know who you're dealing with." And I'm like, yeah, you're dealing with Takashi Kitano. And then he pulls the gun and kills him. I was like, that's why they hired him.
Exactly.
So, okay, I'm going to ask you this, do your best. What do you think Akira is?
Well, wow. Without learning the second act, Akira, I thought was, well, at least on the film, they said it's the cause of the Third World War in 1988. Then the movie set up in 2019, 31 years. So it is a source of energy. For whatever unexplainable reason or origin of the energy, it's not just clearly stated in the film, which probably did okay, because if they tried to mess it a bit more with technicalities, it will just fail. And we're even as just the scientists literally fascinated by this data showing hologram of light, and he just didn't say anything much more. He just say, how could this happen, or what's the meaning of this? So even himself was like not really giving it on to the audience. So for me, it was just this destructive power, similar to I would probably categorize it with the Big Bang Theory, because on the end I will jump into the end wherein Tetsuo and Akira and the three green Benjamin Button kids have disappeared and tried to contain. And it's like the yin and yang, the good and the bad, trying to cancel out each other. And in the end, the line says, "I am Tetsuo." So Tetsuo is basically still alive. Canada just doesn't know what kind of form or where he is, what they mention. But it's kind of similar to, I thought it was going to be like a black hole. I thought the whole Neo Tokyo or the world will be engulfed or swallowed. But at some point when he said, "I am Tetsuo," so he's probably become a Big Bang at some point, another dimension. So it means I just don't understand what Akira is. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. But I think, like what I was saying, I think that's what makes it a film that people will either really love and watch over and over again and chew over and talk about, or they'll just dismiss it and hate it. Much like 2001 and Blade Runner. That's why I mentioned those two films. They leave themselves very open. They don't give themselves like a clear... There's no clear definition of what this film is or what it's about.